then I thought, who are my biggest role models within this space?
That is Tiffany Pham. Tiffany is the founder and CEO of Mogul, a platform that reaches 18 million women per week. Users can read trending content, take courses, solicit advice from other users, and find job opportunities. Check it out at onmogul.com. Mogul also organizes an annual conference called Mogul X, which is billed as the modern millennial classroom. And the next one is this Saturday, September 8th in New York City. Topics include finding your mentor, finding your purpose, building resilience, building your financial future, side hustles, building a business to work remotely. It looks like an awesome day. Registration fee is $250, but Tiffany kindly offered a discount code for listeners of this show. You can enter the code UNLEASHED at checkout, and you can register for just $99. Tiffany is also the author of a new book out today. You Are a Mogul: How to Do the Impossible, Do It Yourself, and Do It Now. Tiffany is a mogul, and she wants you to be a mogul as well. Hello, Tiffany. It is great to have you on the show.
Thanks so much, Will. Excited to be here.
So, Tiffany, in your new book, You Are a Mogul: How to Do the Impossible, Do It Yourself, and Do It Now, you have a chapter about become a mogul from your bedroom, and it talks about what seems to be the real genesis of your firm Mogul, which was when you got on the list of the Forbes 30 under 30, and you didn't even know you were being considered. And after that, a lot of stuff started to happen. You started to get contacted from all over the world. Talk to us a little bit about that experience of getting that news and how that led to you getting the idea and starting Mogul.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that question. So what happened was that I did end up being put on this list, didn't know what it was, but then all of a sudden started receiving emails from all around the world from young women who saw that list and asked me for help, asked me how I ended up getting on the list, how I got the 3 jobs that the list was talking about. And what those 3 jobs were in particular were me working at CBS, working at nights as well, on side hustles with the Vice Mayor of Beijing, to also LA Talent producing feature films together and documentaries. So I was working in all of these 3 jobs when all of a sudden, when that list occurred and all these emails came in, all of a sudden it enabled me to hear from these young women that wanted these jobs and ultimately be able to share advice with them too, therefore. Advice that enabled them to also gain these same opportunities, but also interviews and promotions. And every single time I would write them 3 pages worth of advice, they would tell me that my letter had changed their life, that all of a sudden they got that opportunity or interview or promotion they never thought would be possible. And so every single day this would happen. I would get more and more letters. All of a sudden it turned into hundreds of letters, thousands of letters. And that's when it occurred to me that instead of sharing all this one-on-one behind the scenes, what if we had a platform whereby millions of us could share our obstacles and challenges and struggles, and then from that be able to share our ideas and opportunities amongst each other and become that much better and stronger together. And so as I looked around, it made sense because there were other platforms out there like this, but only a handful, and they were all usually male millennials, typically 90 to 98% male millennial users on such platforms of information exchange. And so at that time, what happened was that I had written a book called From Business Strategy to IT Roadmaps at the time, teaching others how to better build out their IT. And it made me realize that maybe I didn't have the millions of dollars to hire a team of engineers, but the one thing I could do was to essentially teach myself how to code and build this myself. Maybe I could do this. I could teach myself how to code Ruby on Rails, and that could be the final way in which I could help all these young girls' lives. And so that's what I ended up doing every single day. I would work with the presidents of the media corporation I was a part of, CBS, and then subsequently ended up then working with all my various jobs, Vice Mayor of Beijing, also A-list talent in Hollywood thereafter on my productions. Then 3 a.m., I would be done with everything, and I would teach myself Ruby on Rails. And after a couple of weeks, I built the first version of Mogul.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and that's where we are now today. Ever since that launch grew exponentially, and then now has since become one of the largest female millennial platforms worldwide.
So talk to us, for someone who hasn't logged on or hasn't visited your site. There's kind of a discussion forum where people can post articles and then comment on it. There's also jobs. There's also a learning aspect to it. And there's a safety aspect where you can report sexual harassment. Tell us about, give us a little bit of a guide to the site for someone who hasn't visited it yet. Walk us through what is on it.
Sure, of course. So currently, you can go into the platform and you can, as a single user yourself, post articles, videos, jobs, events, products. And that in itself can become your use of the platform because you wish to post, you wish to voice your opinions, your insights, your ideas. But what happens is that collectively, as every single user does that, it then enables the whole platform to surface all the incredible conversations that therefore our users are collectively having across each of these posts, and then ultimately showcase what's trending amongst women's minds worldwide. And that's what's so exciting. Is that then you can really see what's on top of women's minds all around the world. And ultimately, that's why then people, collectively return, not only, again, to share their own voices, but to hear others' ideas as well, and collectively become that much better and stronger together.
And let's go through some of the different aspects of it. So talk to me about the safety at work piece.
Absolutely. So what we do further is that so as the platform then enables everyone to connect, share information, access knowledge from each other, ultimately how we then drive the revenue that enables us to sustain the organization and then even furthermore create global impact, because we have a one-for-one model with the United Nations that enables us to provide free educational resources through the UN for every dollar earned, ultimately bringing those educational resources over to women all around the world who would otherwise not get access to them. How we drive that partnership, in particular with the UN, therefore, is through different divisions of Mogul that enable us to drive value back to our users while also deepening relationships with our respective partners. We do this across different types of needs. First, the job opportunity need, the economic opportunity need. What this means is we here partner through the HR departments of our partners to provide them with access to different softwares available through our platform that enable them to attract, retain, and advance diverse talent. So through this arm, they can post jobs and internships on the Mogul platform that then enable them to highlight the top opportunities available through their workplace. So then also use our software and technology from our platform to train their workforce on inclusive leadership and unconscious bias, and ultimately, therefore, ensure that their workforce is continuing to be a safe and inclusive environment. And then lastly, we also have the Safety at Work tool that enables, again, through our platform for company employees to report back feedback to their HR leaders in real time, so as to help showcase anonymously or non-anonymously what's happening inside the workplace, and therefore continue that safe and inclusive environment as well. So the collection of the 3 HR tools and softwares that we have available enable all of our respective Fortune 500 partners and more beyond to enhance diversity and inclusion inside the workplace and help impact women's lives inside at work. And then subsequently, we then have other aspects to the Mogul platform as well that then help us actually serve our users as well outside the workplace, such that then they can personally, professionally develop themselves outside of work. And that is through our book offering. We have different books coming out, from You Are Mogul coming out September 4th, next Tuesday, to then ultimately also Mogul X, which is an annual conference happening this year on September 8th, where we bring the best of the world together to teach our users about every subject matter within a Mogul's life in real life. And then subsequently also our Mogul learning courses, over 1,200 courses that we have available on the platform covering different subject matters within a Mogul's life, from engineering to career, education, finance, travel, health and fitness, relationships, and more. And ultimately, those courses enable every person to become the best version of themselves. So that's very comprehensively all that we cover within the Mogul organization that enables us to accomplish our overall mission of enabling women through information access, economic opportunity, and education.
Yeah, what a fantastic mission. And the Mogul X that's coming up this weekend on Saturday the 8th looks absolutely amazing. I mean, what an incredible set of topics you have coming up, an amazing set of speakers. And it seems like from the description of it, it's going to be like designed to be very interactive and really encourage people to get to know one another. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about Mogul X that's coming up this Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for those kind words. Mogul X is definitely so exciting. It's going to be such an incredible day of learning and transformative experiences as our users from around the world convene in New York City in Times Square. And it's actually going to be in a setting that is made up of different classrooms. So every single classroom will cover different subject matters, from finance to working it, to hustling, to personal issues of failing forward, or traveling, or health and wellness. And ultimately, altogether, again, representing every aspect of Mogul's life that typically our users we've seen want to improve. And so every single one of these tracks is then further broken down into more classes that are made up of classes such as different components that we've seen particularly interest our users within a specific track. So what that means is, for example, in the Failing Forward track, we have the topic Later Haters, which is being taught by Lizzie Velasquez, dubbed by the internet as the world's ugliest woman, so unfairly, so terribly. And she was able to turn that hatred into such beauty and positivity. And it was just a great example of what to do when you are faced with such negativity, undeserved negativity. So she is going to be teaching the class Later Haters, hands-on learning. And subsequently, the next class will be Molly Bloom, teaching Changing the Game. She is the subject of the movie Molly's Game, in fact, and will teach how to overcome personal downfalls and climb up from there, change their game for yourself thereafter. So she's incredible. Everyone's so excited for her class, her teachings. And subsequently, one of my own personal friends, wonderful friends, is Marian Pearl, who's coming from Barcelona, teaching on building resilience despite the obstacles you may face. Her husband, she befell a personal tragedy 10 years prior from her husband, unfortunately suffering major consequences at the hands of ISIS, and ultimately, as a result, with his death, she's commemorated her life towards, or she spent her life now, dedicated her life towards commemorating his memory, and now she will be teaching on that, how to rebuild resilience, how to dedicate your life towards kind of continued good beyond that. And I'm just so excited for our class too. So those are just example classes within the Failing Forward track. And every other class too is super hands-on, skill building. I myself will be teaching a class on how to turn your biggest role models in life 100% of the time into your biggest advisors, investors, champions, allies, as I've done with my biggest role models, Sheryl Sandberg, Susie Orman, Ariana Huffington, Melinda Gates. How did I do that 100% of the times? I'm going to teach every secret I have, tips, tricks, strategies, step by step. It's going to be a life-changing class for everyone who takes it. So every single class is like that. Super excited for it. And then hopefully all the content from the conference will then be available through the Mogul platform after as well.
That's amazing. I would love it. Would you be willing to share some of the tips that you have on finding your mentor? That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing.
Sure, of course. So some of the early tricks and tips, not so much tricks, but really just the necessity of figuring out who you look up to in life. Who do you look up to so much that you would love to learn from them? You would be willing to do free things for them just to learn. Think about who that is. And then think about what you want to do 5 years from now. Is there something in particular that you wish to achieve this year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Think about those answers and then align them. What I mean by that is, for example, I thought to myself when I was a little girl that I would start a company one day. And so as a result, I ended up thinking about all of the steps that I would need to learn in order to start a company one day. I thought about starting with eventually content, learning about content production, content distribution, marketing, branding, scaling, product and technology, finances, strategy, operations, and more. And so all these make up a business. Then I thought, who are my biggest role models within this space? So I was pretty thoughtful about who it was that I admired within each realm, and then subsequently ended up reaching out to each one of these respectively. For example, within first the space of content production, I would reach out to the people that I thought were so great at producing content. Who could I learn from that I would be willing to do anything? I would reach out, and that included for me someone who is still a great mentor to me to this day, who has been a veteran of Saturday Night Live, great content producer, provider, also the chief content officer of AOL at that time. So subsequently reached out to those two people, for example, and did so in a very specific way, always offering my help up. And definitely in my class, I will literally share the step-by-step and what is said in that email. But the overall gist is that it's an email that conveys how much you have learned about them, that you know about them, how much you admire them, what you are doing, how to establish credibility within the few sentences you have to share ultimately what you're working on and get them excited for it. And then from there, offering a give, enabling them to realize that by meeting with you and agreeing to this 5-minute phone call or 15-minute tea, that it will be something that will be valuable to them as well, because it shouldn't be one-sided. And then ultimately, from that, other strategies are needed within this letter to ensure that they reply, but that includes everything from suggesting specific times and dates so as to ensure that they even further need to reply. Because if you leave out dates and you're very vague about when they might be available anytime in the next few months, they're never going to reply really with a specific date or time. You got to do that legwork for them. And then pinging them, on a regular basis until they reply, not overdoing it, but on typical, an average sales email, you might only get a response within later 6 emails. So, think about that when you don't get a reply. It's okay. You can try again. They're not going to remember your name if they're a very important person anyways, because of the volume of emails they get. So just keep trying. And then ultimately what you're left with is that as you go and contact all of these various role models across all the realms that you want to learn about and contribute towards, and then ultimately what happens is that you've now collectively reached out to 50 role models, and of those 50 role models, 10 will end up then saying yes to a 5-minute phone call or 15-minute tea, and 2 will actually then come up, with you to with an idea of some form, and ultimately then 1 will change your life. So reach out to those 50, because even though just those 10 reply and just the 2 may meet, that 1 that will change your life will transform you forever. So it's really important to get started with this today.
Amazing. One of the topics that you mentioned was doing a side hustle. And, this podcast, the subtitle, of course, is How to Thrive as an Independent Professional. So we certainly celebrate side hustles and people that turn the side hustle into their career. Would love to hear, from all of the content that's posted on Mogul, we'd love to hear your perspective on what are the kind of most common themes among your users around, interest in side hustles. What sort of are the barriers that women see on preventing them from moving forward, and ideas that you have on how people can overcome those and move forward and create the side hustle when they hear that whisper in the ear.
So your question is, what is, I'm sorry, on the side hustle front, could you repeat the main question?
Sure. So what are some of the most common themes that you hear of questions that people have about side hustles, and how to overcome the barriers to getting them started?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. So the most common questions I hear about side hustles are, I suppose, where to find them in the first place, and then how to balance them. So the first question, how to find them in the first place. The side hustles that I found were actually found through the approach that I just shared with regards to contacting your role model and mentor. So typically after I would contact all of my role models across the different areas that I wanted to learn about, I would actually sit down with them for tea, as mentioned, or a 5-minute phone call. But I would always, start the conversation by saying how much I admired their latest initiatives. Here's what I'm working on, but I would love to learn more even about their latest work and things they're excited about. And I would always be very watchful. I would always be hearing exactly what they were saying, listening to see if there was an opportunity in anything there was to say, you know what, I think that's so incredible. I would love to learn from you on that front and to help you on that specific project or collaboration in any way possible for free. Like my time, offer you, just want to learn from you. But I know that subject matter already to some degree. I would usually try to make them realize that I typically had some tangential experience, if not extremely relevant experience, that could help me really kill it in that specific collaboration with them. And then from there, I would essentially say, you know what, I'd love to help. And then from there, usually by the end of a meeting, there was lots of smiling and, yeses, but it's never to close unless you actually follow up with an email thereafter to lock that side hustle. So I would usually then email and say, as we discussed, would love to help you with this. And then ultimately from there, I'd all of a sudden have a collaboration with someone that I admired so greatly that I knew for sure would subsequently enable me to learn a lot from them. And then subsequently also I would be able to learn a lot from the opportunity itself, just with hands-on training this time. So side hustles were so key, definitely, to accelerating my own professional path and the success of Mogul. And I definitely recommend for everyone to find those side hustles by having a lot of conversations, exploring a lot. Many great things will come.
Let's talk about some of the key themes of your book, You Are a Mogul. So you start out with a fantastic story about how in college at Yale, you took on the role of starting out as, as a financial analyst for the daily paper and ended up becoming the publisher. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Of course. So what happened was that I was the shyest student on campus.
That's hard to believe.
It's potentially hard to believe, but it's so funny that when I look back, I was so shy, and I'm always really shy actually maybe not anymore. But at the time, until a couple of years ago, I was always very shy the first year that I started something. That meant at Yale, that meant at Harvard Business School, that meant when I was starting out in the media industry and starting my first job. I was always shy at the beginning. It always took me about a year to get my footing. And then all of a sudden by the second year, then I would hit my stride, and then things would go really, in the direction that I hoped. But it always took me about a year. So what happened at Yale is, sure enough, I was very shy, could barely talk, could barely go to class even, because I was always trying to read the textbook, because I wasn't able to concentrate so well during lecture style classes. I'm not, I wasn't someone that could learn very well through audio, but I could learn very well through visual. I was a visual learner. So anyways, I would read a lot, be in my room. So the consequence was that I was barely integrated, I felt, by the end of my first year at Yale. By my second year, I pushed myself. I thought my grandmother, she was such a standout. She was an inspiration. All my role models, the ones I did look up to as I was reading their books and biographies, like they stood out, they pushed themselves, they were courageous. I should try to do something more. So what I did was I joined the Asian American Students Alliance. It's funny to say it now, but at the time, it was the exact opportunity, the small little step that I needed and that I encourage everyone to take whenever they go after an opportunity. Just take that small little step. Even if it's not the perfect one, it could lead you to that perfect one. So I took this one. I became their webmaster. And so just maintained the website. As part of the positives of being the webmaster of this association, I was able to sit in on our board meetings. And as part of the board meeting, one time, the staff turned the page of a newspaper, our school newspaper, and all of a sudden they were showcasing that this paper had printed a racist cartoon. The racist cartoon was something that got people so livid that the room was ready to throw a protest. We were going to protest down the streets. We were going to throw away this newspaper. And that's what everyone else was encouraging as well. I looked at it, though, and I thought to myself, that doesn't seem to be the right answer here. And in fact, then I started flipping through the paper, and I got to the back cover. And on the back cover was an ad for a financial analyst for the newspaper. And I thought, what better way to change this paper, who probably had good intentions, but had a lack of diverse staff, which might lead to this kind of racist cartoon, what better way to change them but to actually join them? And so I actually then wrote to the email on that ad and met with the publisher of the paper, only to find out that actually the paper was soon going to be bankrupt, that they were in significant debt, and that the school was floating them. So I started to realize that maybe there was an opportunity here to really not only help the paper out by diversifying its stuff, but first and foremost, help it survive. So I actually, as the shy student that I mentioned I was, went door to door, literally rolled up my sleeves and pushed myself to sell ads as a financial analyst, even though it was called financial analyst. Yes, I was examining financials, but obviously, we were in debt. So I became the salesperson for the team. And not only that, but I became half of the team because we were only 2 people now. The whole staff had dwindled down completely from probably what had been dozens before to just 2 people because everyone was jumping ship. So I literally became such good friends with all these restaurants. I would dine there all the time to build relationships with the owners. They would, of course, insist on advertising once I asked them to, and subsequently got Yale agencies to advertise anyone, any corporation that wanted to recruit me for their internship programs, such as McKinsey. I would get them to advertise as well. I remember they pulled a full page ad from that one. and so basically, got all these organizations to advertise, and over time, therefore, got the paper from near bankruptcy to record profitability in 6 months, actually. So it was an amazing experience. And by the time then that I ended up taking over the newspaper as the publisher itself, by the subsequent semester, I ended up having such passion for that paper that I was able to recruit so many friends from across campus who wanted to be part of the team. We grew from 2 people to 30 strong as students from all over ended up joining me to lead this paper back to incredible health. And that became one of my first entrepreneurial experiences, leading this multi-million-dollar budget ultimately, as then we were able to bring the newspaper forward.
That's incredible. What a story.
Thank you.
I'm always interested in the daily routines of successful people. And so I'm always asking guests about that. I recently, we had just did a short episode on my own morning routine. And you talk about a day in your life in the book, and wanted to see if you could share with us your typical daily routine.
Absolutely. So my typical daily routine starts out with actually the night before. I will look at my calendar and I will look at everything I have to do the next day and just visualize success. I will just think about every single meeting that is in my calendar for the next day and think about, do I have the right components for this meeting to be a success? Do I know what I'm going to say? Do I know what the other person wants? Do I know what the overall goal is? And ultimately, I just get myself mentally ready so that then I visualize success the night before. And when the day occurs, I literally have already gone through the steps because I already envisioned it. And this is just a quick, minute exercise. It's not so expensive as it may sound, but literally by the next day, therefore, I know the whole seamless day. I know I'm so familiar with it because I've already gone through it. Similar to how I suppose you might see a performer rehearse the night before, or rehearse for a week for a concert or a tour. For me, that's like a daily rehearsal at night just before I go to sleep. So I actually start off my day the night before visualizing. The next day, I wake up early. I had to work out, really try to keep myself in shape. After the first few years, it wasn't so easy. Beginning of the first few years of Mogul, definitely that was a challenge for me. That was probably, out of anything, while the business was thriving, that was probably the place where I was weakest, was exercising and working out. And that was hard for me, especially as a former athlete. And then...
And what's your exercise routine?
My exercise routine is I go to a dance studio in Chelsea in New York. And it's incredible because it's basically for 60 minutes moving your body and dancing to amazing music and being taught by the best and dancers as well. In particular, I love these specific dancers. They dance for the basketball team here in New York, the football team here on Broadway, and then and the head teacher, who's in fact the founder of the whole studio, herself teaches Sandra Bullock and Reese Witherspoon and Carly Kloss and Taylor Swift, and just is an incredible dancer herself, and obviously teaching them as well. So anyways, love her. She's actually in the book, now that I think of it, Simone de la Rue. So definitely I'm happy to give her the shout out. She's one of the moguls that I feature as one of the 10 alongside my own story of Mogul and our team. And so I think she's incredible. She's definitely transformed the lives of many successful women who didn't want to exercise, but once they found her studio, find it so fun. And a lot of the other students are incredible, amazing women as well throughout New York and LA. So it's almost like I kind of think of it as the equivalent of the old boys club, but for girls. So it's fun. And it's very accessible. Anyone can come. Anyway, so start off there, dance, then go after to the office and quickly have typically a breakfast with someone, whether it's external or with the team, but always with someone. Definitely love the rule of never eating alone. I think that's so key to always ensure that you're continually connecting with someone or eating in a way that therefore you're building and building a relationship. And then ultimately then usually kind of walk all the way across the floor of our company to get to my area. So as a result, I have to pass by all of our various company departments in order to get there. So then kind of walk through all their latest issues or challenges. I love to hear what's going on for real, the true challenges that's happening. So I can help address them all along the way across the floor. Typically then I get to my desk, my office, and then ultimately then the rest of the day is kind of a blur. As you've seen in the book, it's back to back to back to back meetings with the chief marketing officers of our partners, the chief talent officers, the chief learning officers, all across the different companies that we work with, all of the C-suite executives, and subsequently also interspersed throughout our press meetings, as well as product meetings, as well as marketing overall meetings, sales meetings, investor meetings, operations meetings, hiring new people. And then at nights, finally, the day is done by 5, 6 p.m. in the office. And then I'll usually have a couple other meetings as well. And so, and those might encompass kind of small or special projects, whether it's working with our our team on new initiatives that we have for the future, or the book, or conference. And then subsequently, I walk home sometimes in front of some of our executives. Many of them live nearby, so that's always fun. And then from there, work at night, have dinner, then continue working late into the night until midnight. And then from there, at around midnight, typically the day quiets down. So there's many less emails coming in, and I can just spend the remaining hour so that I'm awake just thinking. And that's a really nice luxury as of late, being able to just have an hour and a half of thinking. Because I remember back when I first started, a lot of my advisors, investors would say, that they look forward to the day when I could just sit in a dark room and just be thinking of the future and be kind of visionary because of that to think. And I definitely see that benefit is just being able to sit down and think. And that happens every day after midnight. So love that time to myself.
Tiffany, are there any books that you have particularly gifted often to other folks, or that just have meant a lot to you?
Yes, absolutely. There are so many incredible books that have inspired me as a little girl and even now. And so the books that inspired me as a little girl include everything from Ramona and Beezus by Beverly Cleary to books about Eleanor Roosevelt, which were so inspirational back then. And today it's such a pinch me moment to think that I'm such good friends with her great granddaughters. And it was so inspiring for me at that time as a little girl to read about her and be inspired by her resilience and her fortitude. I'm also very inspired by business books like Built to Last. I think about that book all the time. The book that ultimately taught me certain characteristics of winning companies. And that includes, for example, having a cult-like culture. Don't take cult as literal cult, but just that the culture in itself is so distinct that someone who isn't fitting in with that culture will quickly realize it, and the company will realize it, so that they can continue to build the culture as it is now. And so anyways, these are sorts of characteristics that the book shares and that I've kept with me over the years. After I've read that book, I've tried to implement many of those characteristics within Mogul. Other books that have inspired me include Dale Carnegie's books, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. So amazing. He's a big reason why, if you look up myself or Mogul today, you might see me quickly and oftentimes described often as a calm leader. And that's because Dale Carnegie, when I was learning how to speak English when I was little, would always say over his audio tapes that I would listen to in the car to keep calm, to not stress out, to within moments in which you are experiencing major stress, to just think about whether this moment is so important that 5 years from now, you'll be needing to make sure you make this right decision in this moment. And most likely the answer is almost always no. So think about every moment that you're so stressed out and just take a step back and think of the big picture in the future and whether it's important 5 years from now. And then you'll ultimately be able to let go of the stress. And so anyways, I practiced that as a little girl all the time. Before I even went off to college, I was already practicing that level of mindfulness. And so that's why I'm what many people consider very, very calm and stress-free, and it's all thanks to that book. So books definitely influenced my life. And that's why I have such a love for books, and we have such a love for books inside Mogul as a team, as an organization. We in fact even celebrate books every single year on our anniversary. We actually go to a Barnes & Noble bookstore and do a full-on unlimited shopping spree to celebrate our love of books and education. And so across the U.S., our team goes and picks up books and sometimes not books. I've certainly seen team members celebrate further by even picking up some, cookbooks and magazines and fun electronics too. But books is always the core of what we enjoy and are passionate about at Mogul. So, books can change your life, and we're happy to continue that love and passion for everybody.
That's incredible. Well, loved your book, You Are a Mogul, How to Do the Impossible, Do It Yourself, and Do It Now. That is being published on September 4th. And for any listeners, the Mogul X on September 8th looks absolutely amazing day in New York City. If you're in New York City, it looks like a really rich, full day of learning and connecting. Tiffany, I want to thank you for being on the show. It's been really, really quite a pleasure and a privilege to speak with you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciated it. And it was so fun speaking with you. So thanks so much. And I hope you'll join us too at Mogul X. And if not, we should definitely get you some free tickets for you and some listeners. Excited about the next time and excited to meet you soon in person.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Unleashed, the show that explores how to thrive as an independent professional. Unleashed is sponsored by Umbrex, the world's first global community of top-tier independent management consultants. The mission of Umbrex is to create opportunities for independent management consultants to meet, share lessons learned, and collaborate. I'd love to get your feedback and hear any questions that you'd like to see us answer on this show. You can email me at unleashed@umbrex.com. That's UMBREX.com. If you found anything on the show helpful, it would be a real gift if you would let a friend know about the show and take a minute to leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. And if you subscribe, our show will get delivered to your device every Monday. Our audio engineer is Dave Nelson. Our theme song was composed by Gary Negbauer, and I'm your host, Will Bachman. Thanks for listening.